All right, everyone, now we have to talk about Chuck Schumer and the U.S. Senate in relation to gun control, because the link in the description, archived, of course, Biden the other day says, well, I'm damn right, I'm going to act on guns. We need to do something. Within hours, Chuck Schumer, who was talking about the need for gun control too, because he's deeply anti-gun, has tabled the concept of bringing forth any attempt at anti-gun legislation at the Senate level until after the midterms, when the Democrats will clearly not have control of the House, so anything in the Senate would be DOA, probably lose control of the Senate as well. He won't even be the Senate Majority Leader because the Republicans will take the Senate. I would be very, very confused if they didn't. Even with shenanigans on the table in a handful of races, I think the Republicans managed to pull it off in the Senate, especially because gun control, which is now the flavor of the day boogeyman, is unpopular among the U.S. public. The problem with the Democrats is that they look at the one thing on which Americans actually generally agree, which is more background checks, and they tack 5 or 6 other things onto them. So they go after sporting rifles, improperly labeling them assault rifles. Liberal media has come out repeatedly and warned the Democrats that their messaging on that issue is terrible because they keep getting rebuffed so easily. Anti-gun proponents make arguments that are simply objectively wrong in a historical and statistical fashion, and they are therefore indefensible, and a bunch of gun toters are able to run roughshod over them in the public square. Another reason why big tech and the legacy media are doing everything they can to silence people who are pro-gun. You'll notice that there's a fairly strong correlation there. They tack on attempts to ban attachments for weapons that have nothing to do with lethality. Oh, a flash suppressor. Well, that sounds scary. Grenade launchers. Never used in mass shootings, by the way. You can get one for $200, tax stamp, and an extra background check at the federal level, which, by the way, I think should be abolished. I think that everyone should have a grenade launcher. They keep tacking on more and more. The problem is, let's say that you have 70% of the public supporting a ban on flash suppressors. We're using fake numbers here, but we'll just use these as an example. It's rhetorical. It's hypothetical, rather. And then 60% want a suppressor ban, and 59% want pistol grip ban, and 90% want background checks, and 45% want ban on assault weapons and stuff. Okay, some of these proposals carry more than 50% of the population. You could probably get them passed. But when you add them together, you inevitably lose more and more people out of that group because not all of them support each individual kind of legislation. The Democrats are notorious for overstretching. I've pointed this out before. They're the opposite of the Republicans typically. Republicans, you hand them the House, the Senate, the courts, the executive branch, and they'll just sit there and say, well, we can maintain the way things are. It was built mainly by liberals over time. We're conservative. They're cowards. It's literally, the elephant is a really, really good mascot for them. It sees a mouse and it freaks out. I know that that's not actually what elephants do, but it's the joke. It's a stereotype. The Democrats are the opposite. You give them an inch, they try to take a mile, and they fail to take anything because they keep shooting themselves in the foot. Schumer, I believe, with this move, is trying to save the party from its own inclinations. And I'd be surprised if the Geek Squad in the House doesn't move forward at the House level to try to push anti-gun legislation anyway, and thus harm the Democrats' midterm chances further. The reason why I think this is strategic, as opposed to simply saying, well, we don't have the votes, so screw it, I think it's an attempt to push back against the liberal side that's more anti-gun, because if their inclinations follow through into an attempt at policy, the American voters will punish them. Schumer knows full well that the Democratic Party would love to ban effectively all weapons in the country. There have been a handful of more honest Democrats who have alluded to this. Dianne Feinstein comes to mind. It's not popular, especially after a mass shooting. After mass shootings, the popularity of gun control tends to drop. It did after Sandy Hook, it did after Aurora, it did after Pulse, etc., etc. It's a repeated fashion, and that's because of the anti-gunners' hyperbolic frothing arguments that they make. They push it too far. They take what could be a mild proposal of gun control that might be palatable. I would oppose it. I think all gun control should be abolished. But it could pass muster, if not necessarily in the constitutional sense, at least with the voting public. Schumer is well aware of this fact. He's been in the Senate long enough to understand this basic concept. I think this is an attempt to table the gun control argument to put the genie back in the bottle as quickly as possible, let it fall out of the news cycle, because you're already hemorrhaging support for the midterms based on crime, which is ironic, the border, certainly the economy, certain foreign policy issues. You have the least popular sitting incumbent president at this point in his presidency in U.S. polling history. He's below Trump, he's below Nixon, he's below Carter, he's below everyone. Biden is at the lowest point in his presidency of any individual who has held that office in living memory. With all of these things stacked together, any more incremental damage done to the Democrats a la the midterms could be a disaster. Schumer knows it's the difference between the Republicans picking up a Senate seat and picking up 5 or 6 Senate seats. That's the movement of 2 points. Just 2 points in the generic ballot would do that. He knows that it's a difference between losing 35 House seats and losing 50, and going from getting soundly defeated to getting absolutely ass-blasted and becoming a minor party for the next couple of years. He knows this because he's a strategic liberal. The Geek Squad and all of those people, Bernie Sanders, etc., Ilhan Omar, they don't get it. They're hyperbolic. Why? Because they only look at themselves. They come from solid blue districts where if you don't talk about hating guns, you don't get reelected because someone will come out from left field, primary you, and destroy you. Or in the next general election or something like that, you'll lose your seat. There are plenty of Democrats, though, that are from districts that are not so safely blue on the gun issue, including some in Texas. After Beto O'Rourke's stunt, I would hazard a guess the Texas public, which is already tilting way off into Republican la-la land at this point, if the differential turnout between the Paxton and George P. Bush race versus the generic liberals they're going to use that Paxton will use as a punching bag now, that race is almost 4-1. The turnout differential is already massive. We're looking at a situation where just the differential in turnout in a 50-50 sum game race would give the Republicans wide control of the House and possibly narrow control of the Senate. There's nothing in favor of the Democrats, and if gun control becomes a main argument, they will lose more independent voters. More and more people are buying more and more guns, partially because crime has returned to the level it was in the 90s. After 2 decades of crime dropping precipitously, it stalled out and now it's beginning to skyrocket again. Part of this is lockdownerism related, part of this is bad economy related, which has partial to do with lockdowns, and part of it has to do with the revolving door policy of deep blue areas towards literal terrorists like Antifa and BLM. They just go back out and do more violence. Some of these people end up shooting people. You'll get Sequoia Turner. No liberal ever says it can't say her name in regards to that particular shooting because of who did the shooting. The fact that he's tabling it is a strategic move. Entirely self-serving. Schumer's hoping beyond hope that the Democrats pull it together just enough so that the Senate stays 50-50 in the midterms. That's the best result. The best result is Schumer keeps his high-level position. Pelosi gets knocked on her ass, and he would probably love that and expects it to happen, at least in the latter, because Pelosi bullies him. She knows she's top dog, and Schumer is really, he's the third wheel of the Democratic Party at the moment. That's about all. Peace out.